Hello and welcome back once again, my friends. Thank you so much for stopping by, and hope to bring you another exciting adventure of Hambbage Hardcore Vanilla Minecraft. Uh, excuse me. We're going to go ahead and dive back in here. Let's get this started soon slide out of the way, and we're going to start with a bit of excitement. I opened up Minecraft and just was ready to open the world here, and I see this gray screen, which is a little bit intimidating. Hopefully, that just means that the world's going to populate around. Let's hope for the best. Hey, look at that! Kind of weird. I've never seen it do exactly that before. Um. So yeah, been a couple days on my end since the last time. After a few of our, pretty pretty much hit this world hard for 2 days in a row. It was kind of snowy and cold and nasty out, and as you guys may have told from some of the recent commentary, I was kind of beginning to run together a bit, so to speak. Yeah, I don't think that's a bad thing. I hope, I hope it enjoys. I will stand by it, but at the same time, it's in any of these kind of things you need a break. I know, reliable content is certainly important when you get to streaming in particular. You have to be dependable in the time slot, and you may have to play around with that just a bit at the beginning to kind of find your window, the one that's it's gonna work for you, and kind of you can record, produce content, play, or be online, or whatever, reliably at that time, but also that has a group of viewers that are available at that time that are interested in your content. I think that's certainly something to be aware of as you're beginning to contemplate going on live. And just to be clear for the YouTube folks, um, this is not yet a part of a live stream. My guess is that it will be a little tough to tell at the beginning. I'm not doing any kind of paid promotion or anything like that, and wouldn't, even if I thought I was had a chance to do any kind of monetization of this stuff, but it even when we go live, you probably first get a sense from the YouTube side when I, in amazement, am first trying to interact with somebody on a chat um, type basis. So we'll see once we even get to that point how that plays out. I honestly don't know. It'll be new challenge, new excitement, and we'll do that again. I kind of just stepped away, and the only really unfortunate thing from my side in that was that I didn't space out the scheduling of the videos more. Because when you create a YouTube video, most of the time you'll note it. If you follow a particular content creator for a particular amount of time or anything, their videos usually will pop on routine. And hey, the way that ends up working, it's this kind of stuff that, sorry, um, we walked to the tree, we climbed up the tree, and that guy was nowhere to be seen. And then when you're, where is my shield? Oh my, out of nowhere. Hey, now there's a skeleton in the lake. Where did he come from? Because I sure didn't see him. Anyway, sorry. So, back to our tree chopping. What was I talking about? Maybe streaming someday? I don't know. Oh, schedule. So, usually, the folks that are either streamers loading VODs or just purely YouTube content creators will, the ones that are doing it, quote unquote professionally, or have reached some level of recognition from the platform that they're producing for. And I say YouTube, Twitch, those are kind of the ones that I consume on my end. I know that there's others. Maybe I'm a little bit too much of the prior generation to see. We'll see whether I ever feel any need to. Was the one that started all Dancy? TikTok, the Dancy one, bought by Oracle, big to do there. Anyway, or almost bought. I don't know how that ended up coming up. Anyway, the scheduling part and the way we got there was that had I decided to just kind of get away from the screen for a bit, following those two kind of bad weather days, I may have spaced out the scheduling of the videos that are currently up, and basically they ended up coming up. I think the last one was after an overnight upload at the end of my last play session, but really they were staggered, so every 4 to 5 hours or so, as I was playing. And this is what I'll often do, if I'm going to do a few in a row, and I'm not sure what'll happen today, but if I am going to do a few in a row, I will play this session, because again, call this session, right? So we've got episode, I think ultimately this would be 9 for this world. Don't quote me on that, but we play through it, and then I'm going to continue to play the world and continue to make the raw recordings, but I'll start to upload this episode while those others are going. So usually I'll kind of do one in real time. If I'm going to do a couple sessions, I will let that first one upload, which is the bulk of the time. The data needs to go up there. Then, depending on how whatever the platform is, however long it takes to process it once the whole file is up, it'll give you the option. You can either publish it live, then, or you can schedule it for a time in the future. So I will usually do one or two, as I'm keeping up, because they seem to come pretty close in my with my connection and the setup that I have currently. I seem to upload and process and all that in about real time relative to my what am I saying? My actual playtime. So, we come through, do this. By the time I'm done with the next one, then, if they're close to the same amount of time, this one would be ready to publish. Hit the button, at least while I'm taking a little break, you got some time there. You can let it finish up, hit publish. That one's good. And then as you build up a few more, kind of schedule those out. And for currently the subscribers here are virtually non-existent, but when you do have a wider, I'm certainly a subscriber to some other content creators. When they publish, having those kind of spread out is kind of nice for your subscribers. They'll see that content update, and if if it's just for immediately, it doesn't prolong the enjoyment for your viewers, and it goes all too quickly. Whereas if I'm playing, in the daytime or whatever, my first scheduled one will kind of be, say it's Just today's an example. It's currently in the morning here, and I would maybe run that first one in real time, so kind of midday-ish, early afternoon. By the time I get a second one ready to go, schedule that for evening, around 5 or so, something like that. Then maybe one more kind of late evening, like an 8 p.m. or something. One at midnight, the next one, kind of 5 a.m. staggered out like that. And if you know you're going to be uh, getting away from just the gaming stuff, maybe you're going on a family vacation, maybe you just know life's going to get busy, right? As I know, it's going to be a pretty nice weekend this weekend. Pretty relative to the rain, snow, clouds, and cold, and all the rest of the stuff that in my particular corner of the world has been dealing with the last week and a half or so. It's supposed to be really nice. So I would anticipate that there won't be a lot of time of me sitting indoors on the computer and more time getting out and enjoying the world. So I may start to stagger these out to one during daytime, one at midnight or overnight. Those kinds of just little thinking ahead, so that there's always a steady trickle for the folks that are looking for new stuff. They don't just get a big batch and then nothing. They always have something new to see. It's kind of a good habit to get into it. And again, I'm talking to myself as much as other people as I kind of think about what habits I'd like to instill for myself. But yeah, if you're thinking of getting started too, that's what I've certainly put together out of the recommendations and tips that I've heard from a variety of content creators. As they talk similarly as they're going through stuff, they'll kind of offer insights to their communities about this is how I do stuff, or hey, I'm about to go on vacation. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing, or this is how I, want to make sure that you guys are happy while I'm gone. And then, we'll do something similar. But, by and large, just a little insight as to how I do this when I do play. It's usually a couple of these episodes at a time, and then a few spaced out videos after. And had I known that, not so much a break, just not as you can't. I certainly feel you can't play video games all the time. It's not healthy. It gets tiring. You begin to get burnt out on them, and instead of just feeling like a fun opportunity of something to do, it begins to feel like oh man, I'm going back to that again. And while I think a lot of creators would like to dispel the myth that hey, this is a real job. This isn't just all fun and games. It becomes more that when you're forcing yourself to um, play or produce in a grindy way that becomes burdensome for you. A job ain't nothing but work is an expression, but how you look at that can certainly change the implications. If what you're doing is something that, and we talked about with musicians in a previous episode, if what you're doing is something you're passionate about, then you're, you know, yeah, you have to. Anyone can tell, very quickly if you're not even bringing effort to what you're doing, and if you aren't aware of that, if you like to play video games and you decide I'm gonna put them up on YouTube, and that's kind of what I do. But if you don't put in the effort to kind of before you start, sit back and go, okay, I want to do this on YouTube, and how do I need to change the way that I play the game or games so that it will be pleasing for an audience as opposed to painful, that's something that people are going to know immediately. If any of us create videos of us playing a video game exactly the way we do, when we're just on our own, and maybe, as I've talked about, sometimes I'll have either other stream content or TV game or sporting event or something on TV in the background. If you're just munching on a bag of chips and more focused on what you got going on around and how you're playing the game that you're playing, and you're not thinking about having an audience and what would be entertaining to them, then it's going to show, and that unfortunately becomes very noticeable. And I say unfortunate, I think for me it certainly is. It would be awesome if telepathy TV existed, something like that, where really you could just get that full chilling sense of, hey, this is just what I do for relaxation, and I'm gonna go about it, and people will find that entertaining, and I can just throw it out as is. That'd be cool. And more so, I think, than others that are really solely doing it to focus on an audience. I think I said very early on, a big part of why I'm doing this is just to get some record of some of the worlds that I have. So often, playing hardcore for years, and you guys have seen how I kind of approach it in the wake of a death. I don't get overly bummed, but I don't linger over long around that world. I pretty quickly go ahead and hit that delete button, and it's done. I'm not, and if I know I'm going to be doing an update or something, the backups of the worlds and things, I will certainly not shy away from. But I don't. Yeah, that may change down the road. I would expect until I start a video at some point with hey guys, sorry, but this world got corrupted and I learned the hard way. We'll probably just keep going as is, and at some point we'll have that. But for a long while, I haven't had any issues with world corruption or anything. Which, sorry, Elcano, I just cursed you to oblivion. And I'm sorry about that, but no, it's really been the case. There have been times in Minecraft's life where, whether it was through the version of the code that was processing, the generation of new segments as you went out into the world, or whether it was, frankly, I don't know. Maybe it was just, in past versions of my own hardware, PC or laptop or anything else, that I was just inadvertently introducing more chance for that to happen. But, I was going through phases where you kind of cringed when you either started a new world or headed out into the oceans to go exploring, because you knew that at times, especially if it was a long boat trip and you were just going, at some point, as you go, all of a sudden the newly generated world will kind of hang out there. You'll see what I kind of call a seam, right? You're looking at the horizon, all of a sudden there's just nothing there. You can see a hard straight line that's the edge of the loaded chunks, and if that line approaches you, it means that the world is not keeping up as you are traveling within it. It's not generating chunks quickly enough to have them ready by the time you get to the edge. And yeah, there were a few periods where, for me personally, I'd kind of be doing well, and then 2, 3 worlds in a row would just go very quickly. And that I haven't encountered any of that in quite a while now, but it happened. I don't know if anyone else can remember or relate, but one of the odd behaviors over the years that I've encountered with Minecraft, there was a while, probably, let's see, between and around the underwater update, the treasure ships and the maps and the underwater temples were already there, but the expanded fish and the improved swimming and all the stuff that went into the underwater world update. I think around that there was a functionality that, particularly for me it was, again, I think I was on, it may have been on the PC too at that point. I don't know, but laptop or PC, where the timing would kind of get a little jinky, I want to say. And if you're sitting here, especially at dawn or dusk, if you were looking at the sun on the horizon, it would kind of go up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And if you were breaking these leaves, you'd break two, and then like one would come back, and it would be this constant like forward back, like somebody was hitting a forward and rewind button on TV, or the little like 10 seconds back button, the recall. Um, every time you'd go a little bit forward, it was like something was hitting that, and all of a sudden you jump back again, and you're like, that's weird. So definitely had that, and that always seemed to be a hit or miss deal, where you would either get a world that had that or you wouldn't, and you'd be fine. And just as with any game, there's always weird ways that they interact around. All right, so we did the chore that I think we had left for ourselves the last time around, as kind of, or for obviously the ladders. I remember saying that, hey, we're gonna make ladders because I'll never remember if we don't, and we did, and I used them to chop down those big trees, which was obviously what I needed to get done there. We've increased our wood, even though we didn't get bees, and that's the reason why we set these up, and we'll have to just periodically turn them. And it's not a high chance. It never was expected to be for some of that kind of stuff. So you live with that a little bit. But yeah, let's go ahead and pull back some of these new crops. We got our wheat here. And we'll do the potatoes. It looks like I kind of scoped them out. The beets and the carrots still are coming along a little bit. They're close, but yeah, I think if we do these three that are ready and then head over, they'll all have a little bit more chance to develop and maybe be a little closer to fully grown. So, hope everyone's been doing well while we've been away. I've been off and about. I certainly felt a little bit of a Minecraft itch. Not too terribly, but a little. What else has been going on? Well, here's a random thing. I don't know how many people really celebrate this animal. It's got an unfortunate name, and doesn't have maybe the prestige of some others that I think are in its family. And it has occurred to me, but I really haven't done the thing that every time I think about it, I think I should do, which is just go online and take a little look at it. But I live along a section of trail. I think I mentioned in the past. One of the real cool parts about where I live and just the area in general is one. It's very active. Lots of active type people. And we have what I consider pretty good climate in Colorado. The last 2 weeks notwithstanding, where we've had way too much snow, clouds, rain, and all that to really do a lot pleasantly outdoors. But we get a lot of sun. We get relatively low humidity. We get uh, a relatively high sunshine. Generally you can, and even when it does, we do get a lot of snow, but when we get it's typically snowy while it's snowing, but very quickly after that, sun comes back out and it dries out. For those who don't know, think Denver, Colorado area, and you may not be familiar with the area, but just like I've never been to South America, unfortunately, I do know that the Andes kind of run down the western spine of South America. When you have the Brazil and the kind of northern edge of South America countries, kind of looping around to the east there along the Atlantic in what's if you look at a globe or a map or something, that it's always been pretty clear, I think, to quite a few people, that the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle seem to line up pretty well. That at some point, South America and Africa were pretty close together. I happen to be a big casual interest person in tectonics, the convection circles of the world, and how how those impact geology of our planet. So just even looking at a map or a world or a world of the globe or anything like that has always been kind of fun. So maybe that's not even entirely fair to say about people, expecting that people would know where particular mountain ranges are. If you happen to be tuning in from uh, Europe or Asia or anywhere, welcome. I'm glad to have you. Go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know where you're tuning in from. But what what that translates to for me is, I live in the area, kind of what we call the Front Range of the state of Colorado, and that's where most of the people that live in Colorado live. It's a belt that runs along the edge of the Rocky Mountains, and here those are kind of the southern Rockies. And when you look at a map of the Western Hemisphere, the whole thing, and so you got North and South America, and Pacific is going to be on your left, and if North's at the top of the map, that's the way you should turn it. So if you're looking at it, then um, on your left hand side is the Pacific, on the right hand side is the Atlantic. Um, North and South America are joined by Central America, which, if you're one of my homies down in Mexico, your country kind of funnels down to a narrow belt of a number of countries, and I'm sure I would miss some if I tried to name them all, but we have Honduras, Nicaragua, Guatemala, Panama, Costa Rica. Number of smaller countries that kind of run along a thin belt of land that sits kind of twisting it as you go from north to south. It kind of twists a little bit to the east and yeah, divides the two big oceans. And fortunately, way back in the time of the conquistadors and the Western early explorers of the 15th and 16th century, they reached that strip of land and were able to, kind of at the recommendation of the locals who, said, hey, this is, it's going to be a rough hike. There's a lot of mountains and stuff, but jungle covered mountains. But if you guys want to come along, we can show you. There's another big water over on the other side. And of course, the the whole um, celebrated story of Columbus, and that alone is debatable these days. I think rightly and wrongly, Columbus both in equal measures. Columbus has gotten enjoyed some years of a lot of praise and some years of a lot of flack, depending on what your own background is, and as we've come to learn more and understand, you know, uh, how his own contemporaries viewed him, across different countries and segments of his own society, and how his acts and those of others around him, because he wasn't the only one, he wasn't operating in a vacuum, but how others ultimately impacted the peoples that they came in contact with. And I think attitudes of the Western European world at the time certainly didn't command a sense of self pride. I similarly, I I just recently watched what's now an old movie, probably probably a lot of people watching here would consider it a classic, right? It was filmed maybe in the mid to late '80s, but Kevin Costner's Dances with Wolves, highly recommended. If you haven't seen it, it's borderline. Well, I think it's fair to call it an epic movie in scope and scale. It's very impressive, and it for for any time, it really has elements that make it a visual masterpiece, and it's always resonated with me quite closely because when I was a kid, probably, a number of years after that, but I spent some time out in South Dakota, um, actually working, it was a trip, but, we were basically helping out at a um, pre-K kind of nursery school slash daycare type thing for what I know at the time, and I don't know now. And if you're watching and you know more than I do, please feel free to correct me or update me. But at the time, the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota was one of the most underserved communities in the entire United States. It kind of was a real sign of how the Indian reservation system was failing its communities, and the Lakota, or as they are sometimes known, the Sioux um, Nation. The members of that in that particular area, they had a tough go. There weren't a lot of economic opportunities. Um, I think as uh, people know, no matter where there's poverty, things like alcoholism go hand in hand. This was, at least in my knowledge, and probably pretty accurately, but it was kind of before the meth boom. Certainly before South Dakota launched their campaign of meth. We're on it. That got a good chuckle out of the whole world, but it didn't need those kind of things to make life tough for people. So we were down there leading the hand, lending the hand. One of my very favorite, and also there's an incident in there that someday maybe I'll have a story on of one of my least favorite memories of my whole childhood slash young adulthood um, all happened on that trip. But more for another day. That made the movie Dances with Wolves resonate with me from an early age. It was very popular. I think it won Academy Awards, certainly a few. I'm not sure. I think maybe Kevin Costner got one. I think you know visual effects and all that. It may have gotten a Best Picture, but it usually comes back up around this time of year. When it's award season and all that. They bring out past award-winning movies. So usually, every few years or so, I'll watch it. It's long as an epic. Man, I think its runtime is up over 3 hours maybe, and like any good epic story, you see a lot of development. I don't want to. For those who may not have seen it, it's um, it's probably got a few stories in the arc of the main character played by Kevin Costner, who kind of learns to reshape his own worldview, and there's certainly an angle in that movie, and it's not wrong by any means, but I mean, there's times where they're a little blatantly playing at your heartstrings, and I'd like to say, oh, maybe that makes it seem old fashioned that it's right there in your face so obviously, but I don't think we, as a filmmaking culture, that we've really gotten much better about that. It still seems like, maybe a little subtlety when you're trying to get a message across. I know it's important to you, Mr. Director slash movie maker person, but sometimes you don't need it quite jammed down your throat. But as I was saying, with conquistadors, or um, that American final expansion into the Great Plains area was another era when you kind of look back, and I think, any bias aside, there were acts that nobody should really look back on with pride and be like, yeah, that was awesome. And I think, despite the some of the overbearing visual images of Dance of the Wolves, it did a very good job of showing that both Native Americans and the whites, or the uh, new Western European slash American Americans were both human, and both had good and bad attributes, and people among them that were respectively either noble or not, and that even the noble or not people among them could have particular skills or personality quirks that were more or less endearing. So, great movie. What that what that always comes back around to say was that Colorado is in the high arid plains, where I like most of the population of Colorado live along the front range of the Southern Rockies. That's how far we've gotten, and so Denver sits just more north than south of center, in a north-south line through the state. The state's a big rectangle, if you didn't know. So as they were doing when kind of the middle of America got filled in and parceled up into territories and then states. They they were largely open, and where in the east and the west, a lot of states' borders curve and are very elaborate because they follow rivers. Out here, there weren't some of the rivers that were life arteries for the whole area were not that big, or more seasonal than you would expect, and others were just not worthy of being a border. They might dry up at times or something. So they basically just, okay, this is the latitude, or the from this longitude to that on this latitude is going to be the top edge of the state, and then so the Dakotas and Kansas and Nebraska and Wyoming and Colorado, all those, Nevada is kind of a square with a one triangular corner. So all these have that late characteristic to them. Let's, while we're just talking here, go ahead and punch out. As we said, to start, we're going to take the whole room around the stairs out to this height, which is 5. So we're going to go 5 high, and we're going to take, all the way around to here so that we have a nice little buffer. And you can see we got one extra line there. I'm not bad, but we'll continue to grow as we need to. We need to go out, and I think this direction particularly, that's where our zombie spawner is, and we don't want to forget that we're working on that, or need to be. So yeah, I think it's time to kind of rotate back to get on a little bit of a diamond quest. We still need coal. We talked about going on caving, just surface level, find caves, dive into them, and see if we can, by moving quickly, snatch up some more coal. Because now that we have that nice bank of furnaces, we could do a lot more building supply cooking and go from there. But yeah, we'll see. We'll just keep this this little extra edge on this side going. So again, the 5 has always worked out for me. You can certainly do a 6 that you can reach straight up, maybe even one more. But 6, I know you can. But 5 is going to give us plenty of space for one thing. As we've talked about, we're on level 11. That's the level that I like to mine diamonds on. You can. There's not a particular right answer. All you need to know for sure is that diamonds start on level 16, and this will change when in a future release they increase and decrease the world height. They're going to make it so you can build higher, but also so that below what is now level 0 can become a kind of a deep mine area, if you will. I don't know. It's a cool way without completely changing the game or anything. They're giving more opportunity for scope to I think largely some of the builders and folks that I don't know why I was gonna run the whole edge out here, but we're gonna go actually one more here. So let's do that. Oops. Didn't watch my pick. One more here, and then we'll put the double edge past this torch. So we'll go one more out here. Here's some water flowing there behind the wall. So our torch will go here, and then we're actually going to push this one back one. This will be our little edge. And then we'll do one more over on this side, just to kind of carve things out. I think from here, we'll go ahead and cut high and carve out this side wall. And then we'll, be halfway done with this initial ring of rooms. But I think that will help us kind of, better balance our staircase so it's not just jammed in against any one wall or another. And we'll also, when you go on these outer rings around the area you're going to carve, you kind of get a taste, or a preview. It's less likely that you're going to have a cave just dropping down on top. So if you are going to touch a new cave or have a dark area that may introduce some monsters into your mining area, better to find those when they're still kind of contained and like if you start with the punch holes in, if you don't see anything, and then you go in, even if this is open, if I've still got a 1 or 2 wide, I can kind of quickly fill that into a doorway, and just make sure I deal with and light up whatever that area is before I just open it up wide to to my mine and indirectly my home. I want to make sure that that stays monster free. So yeah, I know this won't have quite the same pace of excitement as the uh, later diamond exploration and last world or the Suzanne the Dean world. We definitely tried to push out into that tunneling before we really carved out a space. But as we did with the stairs, I don't want to play every world in exactly the same formula. Hopefully, we'll last long enough that by the next time we have to start from scratch, we haven't done it in a while, and it won't matter exactly how we do it. But when you've done a few in a row, you kind of gotta keep the formula. So we'll lean, at least as we have for a little bit here, a little more to doing some building as we go along. And part of that, when I build this staircase, or any usually any world, is a legacy back to when I started the game. It's just making a larger space to start from, and then kind of expanding out. And again, as I mentioned at one point, I'm thinking maybe the next run we do it 4 high and do another ring around, and then at that point we've got loads of room for furnaces. We can do a lot of cooking. We can do some crafting. We've even got strips on the outside that can later accommodate for storage. And beyond all that, we are growing a space that we can use to process stuff once we have fortune and silk touch, and are bringing back, if we go out on an adventure, we're going to bring back blocks of redstone rather than the redstone dust pieces like that, and then we can process them all back here. It's nice to have a long straight run of open where you can just place a entire stack or more of those types of blocks out on the floor, and then use your fortune pick on them without having to carry it around with you and further clog up your inventory. So, and usually we do that right in conjunction with our storage, so that as we're processing those out, we just store them away and have them at the ready when we need them. So that's some of the plans. One of our earlier episodes in this world, we had a little slime waiting for us when we came down the stairs. So it's safe to say that one of these chunks along here is a slime chunk. So we may continue to see some slimes around. Be cool. They're always welcome. We'll whack them with a sword and collect their little slime balls and store those for when we may need sticky pistons for projects, or if we need a whole bunch of leads or anything, we can make those. So, yeah, this goes decently fast as we're working through a chunk. Yeah, so we got settled in. Oh, did we ever really finish up on Colorado and the climate and all that kind of stuff? I don't know if we did or didn't. And Front Range, along the edge of the Rockies, and here, as in some of a lot of places, and in the America has continental United States has two, what most people consider two sets of mountains, and really, particularly in the west, but also to an extent in the east, those break into kind of individualized ranges. But and geologists, because they were created through different fault movements and things like that. They are significantly different. But if you look at a map of the continental United States, most people will be aware that there's on the western half of the United States, and with areas of lowlands or deserts in between, you kind of have the Sierras and Cascades that run along the coast, and in what's maintains a kind of feel of mountainy terrain, even if it's got deserts. Usually, you can see heights in the distance around you that merges in with the Rockies, and the Rockies again extend all the way from the Canadian and Alaskan Rockies all the way up, towards the Arctic Circle, and push all the way down through the Central American Isthmus type area, and then almost, continue on as the Andes in the South American continent. So that entire ridge is part of a larger Earth feature that many people may be familiar with as the Ring of Fire. The Ring of Fire kind of surrounds the northern Pacific Ocean from the Philippines and Indonesia up through Japan and Korea and areas of China into the very eastern edge of Russia, and then circles back, kind of following the chain of the Aleutian Islands, over to Alaska, and then all the way down between the Rockies and the Andes and the High Sierras and the Cascades. All those mountains ranges all tie into the tectonic area that is the ever widening Pacific crust. So under the Pacific Ocean, that's where new Earth crust is being formed. By and large, oceans are areas of crust creation, and continents are areas of crust subduction. And our world is, if you think of it as kind of a skim on a cooking pot, as Hambbage, as many of you know, that's a contraction of ham and cabbage. That's why the M is in there when you see my name written, but it runs silent. Hambbage, like cabbage. One of my favorite slow cooker dishes is to cook up some meat with cabbage and maybe a few other vegetables or spices or things like that. But very healthy, very traditional among a number of people, because cabbages are usually pretty cheap. They're a good way to add additional nutrients to your diet in the in the balancing out of meat and proteins. It's fairly low in carbs until and unless you add like potatoes or maybe some. Usually I wouldn't do like a lentil or anything in with cabbage and meat. Those kind of become side dishes or side by side cooking efforts. Over time, I think I haven't really talked about a whole lot. I think you guys will find I really like slow cooking food. I don't. One of the drawbacks, despite having talked about how I enjoy my apartment home and the opportunities that it does give me, one of the drawbacks is you can't have oversized grills. I have a propane grill here that I can cook on when the weather's nice enough, and but you can't have a big charcoal smoker for one thing. There's greater risk of fire. You don't want to burn down the place with everybody around. And second, think about it. If you're an upstairs neighbor and your outside neighbor decides that right below your windows they're gonna fire up a meat smoker, and just as it gets going, usually when you're actually smoking the meat, you're trying to let as little smoke as possible escape, but that doesn't mean the whole neighborhood doesn't smell it when you're going. Well, concentrate that into a kind of apartment or condos or anything like that, a congested living area. You can't really be doing that. So yeah, my slow cooking tends to be out of a slow cooker. A crock pot is it's like Kleenex. It's a brand name that's come to mean the product that it stands for. Cokes, in the South, that is synonymous with soda or pop, depending on what your background is there. Um, so, in man, how cabbage? We got the Hambbage. We were talking. Oh, the we were talking about the tectonics and all that. How did that get to Hambbage though? I don't know. Sometimes I don't follow all these pieces as they go, but we were certainly talking about the Ring of Fire. Oceans create. Oh, we were talking about the continents. If you think of a slow cooker, if any of you guys have seen that, or even just a pot of something fairly liquid that's cooking down, so the liquid is evaporating off it. The pot has been steaming for hours, and as it goes, the what remains in the pot gets thicker because it's losing more and more water. Well, it's a good way to envision, in a much slower sense, the surface of our planet. And now, um, excuse me, a few years, be a couple generations ago, or at least early in my childhood, and it changes so quickly now for fairly young adults and folks that are joining us here today. You may remember that the the images you used to see of our solar system, of space stuff, and all that weren't nearly what they are today. And the latest Mars rover that landed recently, and just in the last week or so, I think the little helicopter thing, which I kind of laugh at. To me, that seems a little gimmicky. While I respect it and I see the application of that kind of technology in extraplanetary exploration, it being able to land a platform and then venture forth from it is certainly cool. From all kinds of science fiction, we've always envisioned that. You know, think I mean, not quite so much the original Star Wars movie, but Empire Strikes Back, the second of the original trilogy movies. Very beginning of that movie, that all our heroes are hanging out on the icy planet of Hoth, and Han Solo and Chewbacca are out, kind of on an exploration mission, and they're all bundled up. It looks like the North Pole. I think that was filmed not in Antarctica, but maybe up on one of the islands, either in Scandinavia or northern Canada, that was near to the Arctic Circle. But wherever they were, they're all bundled up for snowy fun, and they encounter this little flying around robot probe that the baddies have shot down to the planet's surface, and that idea or that need we're seeing come to life over the last 20, 30 years now with I won't be able to say them all, but Destiny and Curiosity and Perseverance, was that one of the rovers? The Mars Orbiter. There have been so many that have done remarkable things, and when when I was a little kid, the Voyagers had, I think, one, there was Voyager 1 and 2, and 2 still going, and they're still going, and not too terribly long ago, um, Voyager 2 became the passed out into interplanetary space. Some current science says that this is the arbitrary boundary that marks the point where, if this is all from years ago reading an article or something, but at the point where our sun or soul's radiation is no greater than the average of the other stars around it or something like that, marks the edge of interplanetary, or not planetary, but inner solar system. Now I've done it. I've gone and shown that I've really talked beyond my knowledge, but cool stuff. And I think the Mars rover and having launched its little helicopter attachment is another big step in that. But it did, to me at least, feel a little contrived. Oh, we're gonna do this, and it will be the first object to fly on another planet. Well, you already control landed a thing down, and when you've got that technology, then just boosting up another helicopter, to me, yeah, it takes a lot of coding and it takes a lot of programming, but once you've delivered it there, that action is not when you get to the point that those can you can kind of, instead of a rover mission to Mars, we're sending an automated exploration station mission to Mars. I think that's when all that stuff suddenly becomes not just cool, but awesomely empowered. And that's where, when we land with the retro rockets and the tether and the parachutes and all that kind of stuff, and we were placing something on our initial landing site on Mars, then rather than having all of that attached to a mobile payload station, maybe the station itself is fairly sedentary, but within it are a number of smaller and portable, vehicles. Some could be rovers, some could be flyers, and that station, is kind of a power hub. Whether it contains a small nuclear reactor or something, or just more focus on robust solar power. But the rovers we've sent so far have done such a good job of outliving their mission timelines, and they've quickly found ways to maintain the solar panels that they do have, so that they're not either through just getting dirty or getting worn down or anything like that, increasingly limited to the point where they can't support the rovers themselves through Martian winters when there's not as much solar energy or any of that kind of stuff. Anyway, blah 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 blah. I think it would be cool if we send something, and it's the Mars Automated Exploration Base Station. Hey, there's our diamond, and it just goes, sits at the landing site. Woohoo, we made it, and that becomes the little Cape Canaveral of Mars, or whatever planet we go to. It just sits there, and it becomes a little hub for a lot of explorations on the surface of whatever planet. Well, Mars first, but others beyond that. Very cool stuff. So some of those planets, we see imagery, and we see. Oh, dang it! Okay, this is what I was talking about when I said, I talked about so boned. When we were farming lava in the Susanna Dean world, shortly before my death, I was talking about you don't want to carve downwards, because if there happens to be lava down there, then you could lose the results of your picking. And while it doesn't take particularly long to farm a diamond, it does take some hunting to find them, especially when it's your first little batch. And yeah, we lost one, but that's one out of a possible 8 in this scenario, and now it's gone, and that stinks. We're gonna get 7, not 8. Whew. Well, that one comes in. Bummer. Anyway, we still got 7. Let's let glass half full, people. Come on, we can do this. So, we were talking. We got on that tangent by talking about being able to view the tectonic systems or planetary shifting of other planets in our solar system that may not be quite as stable. Mars, other end of the spectrum, it's what they effectively call a dead planet. The interior mantle core, or the liquid, in the words of Dr. Evil, liquid hot magma. Anything that had once caused heat from within the planet to reshape its surface, and additionally create a magnetosphere, which limits the effects of radiation on the surface. All that kind of stuff has long since ceased in Mars. Its core has current technology, or the latest observations tell us that it doesn't have a liquid core. It's basically a solid chunk of rock, and that's why we see evidence of past erosion and things like that on Mars, but no longer. Now we're going kind of as an archaeological dig when we explore Mars. If we were to go to Titan or Europa, some of the moons that actually are impacted by a couple of not only planetary but solar forces, those are actually much more tectonically alive, and they wouldn't resemble our Earth exactly, but they show with different medium some of the forces and behaviors that we experience on our own planet, just at a slower pace, because we're dealing with, rock and metal and lava, not liquid methane or something like that. So on our own planet, the oceans represent new crust, new surface of Earth being formed. It's bubbling up out of the magma in convection cycles. If you're interested, we can maybe ramble on those some other time. But the lava gets lifted in certain areas under our planet's surface, and it bobbles up, and where it does, it splits the surface. And again, back to the crock pot, sometimes as a soup or something cooks and begins to dry, you'll get kind of a skim on the top, where that material isn't going down to the liquid below, and as the moisture evaporates and becomes steam out of the pot, without stirring it regularly, you'll see that the more solid parts of whatever it is you're cooking will remain, and those will concentrate and become a kind of a skim. Well, think of that skim as the Earth's crust. In some places it's quite thick. Those would be the continents, and in others it's quite thin. And where it's thin, you may get fissures or cracks, and that's where most of your steam and your heat is going to escape. It's where new bits of the sauce or whatever are going to bubble up from below, and as they do, they'll kind of maintain this river in the skim or line, and that would be roughly analogous to an a continental crust forming zone. Usually at the edges of continents, and the Ring of Fire is an example, you're going to get subduction zones. And that's, the San Andreas Fault around Los Angeles. Even if you don't live in the United States, you may have seen some of the ever redone movies of chaos and devastation, where all of a sudden San Andreas Fault is going to come alive, and a chunk of California is going to fall off into the sea. Well, the San Andreas Fault is a slip fault. It's two plates sliding back and forth across each other. But by and large, the Pacific plate, which is growing in the middle and pushing towards both Asia and North and South America, the continents of North and South America float on top of it. And when new ocean crust gets formed in the middle, it pushes everything else in front of it out towards the edges of the Pacific Ocean. And when they bump into the continents kind of skim along the top. The ocean crust gets pushed back down and will get cycled eventually down back into the magma and remelted and convected around and bubbled back up eventually, some much later date. But that's all really cool stuff that I love. The way that it impacts, and is part of what I love about Colorado is how visible that geology is. Right here, whenever you live in a mountain range or a desert or anywhere where vegetation doesn't obscure it, you can see the evidence of past tectonic forces working on our planet. So, man, we didn't quite get all that done. We're close, though. One more batch. So, we have the Rockies. The Rockies are the most, maybe not. I'm not sure. Maybe the Cascades are newer mountains in the continental United States. Not sure. If anybody knows for certain, let me know. But the Rockies are certainly newer than the eastern mountains of the United States, which are the Appalachians. And you have other subchains out in the east, like the Alleghenies are, a distinct mountain range, but still have that older, more eroded feeling about them, and also run down the spine of the eastern side of the United States, separating the coastal areas from the prairies and plains of central U.S. So on the the Mississippi River runs from the Great Lakes in the north, the middle of the country, all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. And to the east, where it's flat, it's generally prairie. And as you go kind of in an arc from the southwest, again, everything east of the Mississippi, but as you go from the southwest of that area to the northeast, up, from Tennessee and Missouri and Arkansas, kind of starting there and then curving out and around all the way up to New York and New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine. You have a spine of what are largely forested and lower mountains that have been around for a really long time and have been acted upon by weather and just by being exposed, not buried underground. Those rocks have worn away and become softer, so that there's often a lot of kind of fun competition between the east and the west. Whose mountains are better? And the Rocky Mountains, they have these massive snow peaks that that reach up thousands of feet above tree lines. So you see them from a long way away. And, to me, they kind of speak more to mountains. But when you're out and amongst the eastern, either Appalachians or any of the mountain ranges, subranges on the eastern U.S., you understand. Hike those, you'll quickly understand that they're real mountains too. Um, and they rise from much closer to sea level. Here in Colorado, Denver is the mile high city, and you've had a mile of vertical gain as if you start, um, it is a simple one. Start at the Gulf of Mexico, and either go up the valley of the Rio Grande, which many folks will know it separates the border between Mexico and the United States. So that's an easily defined one on a map. Or follow the Mississippi River north out of Louisiana, and it will go up. You can then jump into the Missouri River Valley and follow it up to where it divides with the North Platte River. The Platte River, I guess, as it goes across Nebraska, and that will bring you ultimately to Denver in a very very small. It's still a river, and it's a year-round river, and it's got a channel, of course, but it's certainly not a navigable river in the way that the Mississippi or Missouri or some of those rivers would be. But following those river courses, you will rise from either Corpus Christi. Is that where the Rio Grande exits? I think maybe, or certainly Louisiana, New Orleans isn't right on the shore, but the Mississippi flows through it, very close to the delta, and those two rivers will eventually, after rising for a mile and traveling 12 or 1600 or so miles, I think those are pure guesses, but ballpark, you're following rivers, so it's longer, but it's definitely a good long flow to gain that elevation. But without having climbed a mountain to do it, you've risen a mile up. So if you were then, without dropping an inch, if you just think Minecraft, right? He started Denver and just lay blocks out into the air, perfectly flat, and go all the way out till you run into an ocean. You would be looking down a full mile to see the water. Then, so that's in feet. That is 5,280 feet is 1 mile, and that's Denver's elevation. So they're the mile high city. From there, you can go up another 1,100 feet to the 52 peaks. I believe it's 54. Now that I say that, of Colorado's 14ers. It's in the 20s. Now that I say that, seems like a lot. 27 14ers. I don't know. There's a number of named peaks in the Colorado Rockies that all reach over 1,400 feet in elevation. The highest of which is Mount. Oh man, I'm just spacing on it. Over. Anyway, tallest one is about 1,405. 14,500 feet tall. So they go up quite a ways, but it's 1,100 feet peaks. And when you look at the Appalachians, if you take them from sea level, and it may not be, there's still certainly hills, and that's part of what gives them their softness, is they've eroded the material that had once been on their peaks is kind of spread out around them in hills. So the Appalachians are a broader, hillier belt of mountains where the highest highs are surrounded by a wide belt of what are increasingly steep or rolling hills that kind of climb to their apex, as opposed to what we get here on the Front Range in Colorado, which is you go from plains, which have very gradually risen those 50, 5,280 feet of elevation from sea. If you follow the most gentle path all the way, there's uh, not much elevation gain. Looking at them, and certainly in parts, they seem very, very flat. So uh, then abruptly, you have a compacted area of foothills where dirt and stone and stuff have been pushed up as the mountain peaks have risen. But along old faults, those mountains have been thrust upward, um, and very abruptly rise. So right at the Front Range, where much of Colorado's population lives, we sit in high arid plains biomes that are relatively dry. The plains don't, in and of it, they get lots of spring type monsoon weather, and we'll get powerful storms in the summers. Sorry, as we're going here, let's just take a moment, appreciate what we've achieved here. So this is our first room area around our steps. Like I said, I think the next ring that we do will go out a step down, and then depending on where we need or how far we need to go, we'll either probably keep it around 4, or even do another step further out for 3 before we go into individual tunnels for diamonds. So, and as always, the diamond, just the 2 high, one wide tunnels that we go out in directions, those can begin and we can carve out the rooms around them. So no opposition there. Well, we haven't done good things, and always diamonds are worthwhile, but haven't had a whole lot of adventure when we're just breaking rocks and harvesting crops. And I say that to tell you that I'm fully aware of it, and now we're going to probably go and see if our crops are ready to pop one more time. At least take a run through our trees to see if we got any beehives, and then we'll check the time and we'll see if we're ready for another boat adventure, or maybe a caving adventure or something. So the crops aren't quite ready. We can leave them. We're not in a huge rush for those. We got our stack of potatoes, which is awesome. That's a good early game food source, and as you guys saw from our first harvest, we have lots of them already in reserve. So what in our previous play sessions had been a real need, we had to get food working. We got that now. Now we'll need cows and chickens, just like you do in every world. We're gonna need our books for enchanting. As I've said, we need some leather, even just for item frames. But we don't need to flip into animal mode. We just got all those fields going and everything in our last session, and we worked hard. We deserve a little fun after all that, right? And then you gotta give yourself some treats in life to celebrate the things you do well, keep you motivated. So don't think we'll carry around a pick that's quite that worn though. That seems a little far gone for what we need. And in case we do find a cave, we'll go ahead and fully stock on picks. I didn't really look at the sun. We have a clock here which doesn't seem to be doing anything in our thing. It was bouncing, but I think it eventually is coming to settle on an order kind of midday. And that is good enough. We got a bed. Let's not waste more time. I'm going to break these. How many times have we come up here and been like, oh, we gotta go around that block? So yeah, I think out beyond those trees is where we'll eventually put our animals. You guys look like good candidates to bring over. Um, I was really gonna drop off that bread. Dang it! I think I should. I don't. I moved it into to just top off my food before we left, and forgot to switch that up. But with a full stack, that's just one more spot we can't bring anything else back in. So let's do the right thing. Move that. Get rid of this dirt. Start our vacation like we mean it. And here we go. And again, we'll barely get our toes in the water, and then we'll have to stop, plan our bed, and get some sleep again. But we talked a lot in one of the previous sessions about road trips and family vacations and all that. Have you done one of those trips where you spend so much time getting ready, and this would only really happen for people that have had the experience of going on longer trips, where after you packed and all that, it's worth it just to go and get a little ways out of town and camping or anything else like that, and just go ahead, spend your first night out, even if it's a car trip, you've only driven a couple hours or something like that, but you're not all that far from your destination, but just by not staying at home one more night, getting out and on the road, you feel like you've begun, and that's already worthwhile. After all our Haymarket talk, I think we've already been to this town, um, and explored it a little bit, but it would certainly be a closer set of villagers if we need it. Now, this was part of why we needed to get out in our boat and explore this coastline, because as I see that, we cut hard across the edge. I don't know. We have been to this little village. So I'm glad we went back to drop off the bread. Now that we're picking up more bread, let's not forget our boat is over there. And I'm just gonna ready up the bed now. Um, yeah. We've had so much fun at Haymarket. I would kind of hate to deprive their villagers the chance of being the catalyst for our own villager outpost. But maybe in the interest of bringing peoples together, maybe we'll bring a few people from here and a few people from Haymarket and kind of balance them out together. Let them get to know one another. Make our new villager outpost, when we get around to it, a real melting pot of cultures and backgrounds. We'll have to come up with a name for this little town, though. It's close. It's on a coast. It's got some desert, but it's right by a little. I don't know. It looks like a nice little forested area. So, I don't know, any inspirations? Nothing's just hitting me at the moment. And maybe before we end this episode, if it does, I'll kind of deem it or name it as such. But if in the meantime you have any thoughts on what this particular village may need to be named, feel free to throw that in the comment. I'll take it under consideration. Come on, go down, son. Oh man, I was giving that way too much credit. So, we got another village here in our pocket, and that's cool. Always good to have more friends. I think we'd get around to this. I mean, I know we started over in that corner, but I think maybe we'd come to these as well already. Hi. Oh. And we're really on the brink. It's very debatable as to whether I should really even be bothering to pick up this bread and wheat now that we've got our own wheat farm production going. Why we're even bothering with this, I don't know. But leave their gardens alone at least. We don't even need, we're not even looking for beet seeds. If you had a melon, I'd take it. Be happy about that, but um, you don't even have enough clay for me to make a flower pot. Okay, so back to the boat. The boat go. There it is. That was cool. We got cats. Could call it Allergy Land. What a horrible name for a town. Come on down to Allergy Land. Your eyes will itch. Your nose will sneeze. Uh, Skin will itch. All the wonderful features of Allergy Land. I think we can do better. Let me know if you get an idea. Otherwise, when we next come back, we'll try a little bit harder to give it a name. So yeah, what I kind of thought was gonna quickly cap off at that desert seems to expand, but we may we were talking about Central America and the explorers, being guided across uh, the isthmus at the time. Obviously one of the great works of the early 20th century was the digging of the Panama Canal, and recently in the news, it's not the lesson, the Suez Canal on the Arabia, between the African and Arabian peninsulas, the continent and peninsula. Um, but yeah, we've got our own little what now we'll get through and we'll find that okay, this isn't really that big of an island, but possibly we have a little access to a completely different ocean over here. At least one that, like in the days before the Panama Canal, boats had to go all the way around the tip of South America, or and I don't know completely when the digging of the Suez Canal happened, if that was before or about the same time, or how that played out. They both, were fairly similar engineering feats. I believe that prior to the Suez Canal, there was still a trade route or caravan route that existed between those two. Hey, Mr. Drowned. Any of you guys got a trident? Oh, you do have a trident. Oh my goodness! Don't burn up. Hold on. Nope, nope, no, no, no. Oh, it's a fishing pole. Never mind. Not quite as important. Thought it was a trident. Got a little excited there, in case you couldn't tell. All right, well, let's see what we got. We got a treasure map. That's cool. Some coal. We were even talking about going caving for coal. So even though it's only a couple pieces, we'll probably use those. Now, with these are typically underwater features. We'll see, as the world goes on, we'll see a lot more of them. I don't know that in any of the worlds we played here together, we've had quite the underwater chops to dive down and really explore what they have to offer when they're beneath the seas. One of the draws is that they are a kind of spawning hub for the drowned. We saw the ones that were kind of here by default. Now, because they're above water, they're not going to be particularly ongoing or proficient about generating more drowned. They would have to be in the water, but as you can see, this one has given us easy access to a couple of these chests, and because we'll actually keep the flint now that I think about it. We may need that. But in an underwater sense, they can give us a little more ability to potentially both get tridents and underwater treasure. things like sea lanterns and some of that when we have silk touch. Certainly, we don't need a leather tunic anymore, and a lot of the stuff in here does become junk. I'm torn a little bit. These are good blocks, but I think what we'll do is leave them here. If we find that we want to do any building using those, we now know that we have a source, and it's fairly close. So we can come back and get that. Trying to eat after a little run-in with the drowned. So yeah, we'll kind of see. Our channel through the land didn't seem to be quite as exciting. It looks like we're still part of a bigger. This is a substantial, but still kind of an island, as opposed to a whole wide continent sticking out in multiple directions. But that's all right. It still could prove me wrong. But the appeal of the location of our spawn and base was that we had access to ocean for mobility, and ocean, island or larger continent. It's that junction that's something we can really um, exploit to see new things in Minecraft and hopefully come across. As we've repeatedly talked about, there's still a few little. This may Now, is this the same underwater temple, or is this like the fourth or fifth we've already found? Um, guess we'll find out. I think it's probably new because we'd shot more to the northwest when we went straight out into the water in this direction. I think we did go to that boat. That was kind of what kicked off our explorations, and then we went past those dark oak islands. So we got a bearing. This is kind of the water going back. If we went straight that way, we'd get home. But we got a treasure map here. We definitely want to give that a look and see what more goodies we can get. So now we're far to the northeast of where we want to be. Not far. Our white dot there is pretty big, so we're pretty close to the corner of this map. And since again we want to go southwest, duh, and you got me. I won't pretend it was anything, but I sort of forgot for a second that we had this map in our pocket, and when I was touring along the coastline, we should have put it in our hands right away and then looked at it before we journeyed on. Because usually you're going to be somewhat close to the treasure location when you pick that up. They don't they don't just put them like four different treasure chests away from where you're going to end up. You get a map to whatever's closest to you at that point. So now we need to focus on west, not south anymore, which I think we're heading in to check our sun. I think we can make land without too much trouble. And maybe that little island up there is the one that we're looking for. Definitely coming up right in the middle of the map, and that's a little unfortunate. I'd rather come up from one corner or the other so that we can fully fill in the map as we go. And since it'll take us some positioning and digging and all that good stuff to empty out the treasure, we've got these smattering of islands, so we'll just kind of try to do as much of the map as we can as the sun is going down. Boating into the sunset is kind of nice. It's like a cowboy riding off into the sunset and just watching the world fall asleep here. Very cool. Let's swing back into this closer island. get a little bit of sleep, and be ready to dig up our treasure. It's gonna be a good little bit of excitement. It's kind of, if we dig this up, get home safely, we will have pretty well filled a episode, and yeah, we'll do this pretty well. Now, as always, we gotta just go push out and get these dumb little corners, but we'll thank ourselves when we have this map to hang on the wall with our other one. We'll have one that's got those mushroomy dark forests and lots of different colors, and this one is kind of ocean, lots of ocean with these little islands. It'll be a good pairing to go together. Set one another off well. All right, now our treasure is going to be deep. You guys ready for some deep treasure? So, come on, out of the boat. Out of the boat. Won't break the boat. Okay, now close. And again, I'm just trying to get the tip of the pointer as close as I can, and we'll see deep treasure. It's all we can really do is one or two at a time. I think it was this world we found the Aqua Affinity helmet, but we didn't find a respiration, and without any kind of water potions or anything, we don't have a deep underwater margin of error. It's kind of just go. So here again, I moved that one little over because it. There. Okay, that's good. Let's do these and then get up. Again, it's going to be kind of frustrating here, but already you can see we're going to take just a bit of damage on that one, and we want to make sure each time we come up we get that full lungful of air and then go back down, and we'll get the diamonds and the sea, heart of the sea, I think is what that one's called. And it's a crafting element for a particular item later on. Not much we can do with it now, and I typically end up with a little bit of a pile. I think you're guaranteed one of those in each of these map treasure chests. They just are one per, and you always get one kind of deal. So, all right, last batch. I don't think we're gonna worry about the cooked cod. We've eaten a lot of that. It's not as good as raw cod, I think, for the cats. So, and yeah, we heard that noise. I heard that noise. I don't know if you guys did. I don't know if that's specifically a drowned or what that signifies. I wonder what's over there. We'd had another guardian temple out over there. Let's just snack on our food here. Maybe while we're here. I'm not gonna take any of these down. I'm not gonna do anything here, but let's just throw up a couple little lights. This will be more of a landmark island as we go by. We know we've got it on a map. We'll have in our home, and certainly, we've got further that we can explore out in that direction. I'm intrigued by that sound. I don't know if it signified a dolphin that just sounded weird, or a drowned. I don't know if that's a cavern or just a lighting glitch kind of deal. All kinds of strange, good stuff. Let's see if we can. Well, up here, I don't know if that kelp. I don't see the bubbles. The kelp is going to keep us from getting an air. Here you can see we're kind of using um, the functionality that will eventually allow us to make elevators. But it also, you can see, we can fill up our air using those. So we get some nuggets, one more obsidian, which is great, a fortune hoe. That's kind of cool. So I'm going to do this one more time, get a full air. Oh, do we have a gold block anywhere? Let's see one. Oh, it's just kind of, oh, see, and then if you catch them again, they'll pull you back down. But that's all we needed. Now, fortune hoe. We can't use it to increase our diamonds because if we break the diamond ore with it, it will go. It will go. The diamond or even iron, any of those kinds of ores will break and will be left without them. So we don't want to waste it on that. I mentioned though that fortune hoes work for carrots and potatoes, so we can certainly just kind of use it in a throwaway manner, but get a little boost to our production of those. Maybe carrots priority is they trade a little bit better than the potatoes, and we're still catching up. I don't think we're ever going to need to so completely depend on potatoes as food that we need a big boost. But at a very minimum, I can show you guys kind of the increased yield when you use that as opposed to when you don't. We'll maybe load up do a full example. We'll do a batch of by hand, a batch of by iron hoe, and a batch of by however much of the gold hoe we can get. See how our yields compare. Be kind of cool. So yeah, that's something to look forward to. Again, it's not the greatest treasure we've ever had. Our new village friends are going to be kind of over past those woods there. And I'm just swinging wide so we don't have to deal with the guardians as we get back home again. Is that a ship? I don't know that we ever saw that ship. We'll try to align ourselves, or it looks like a very broken ship, so it's maybe not top yield, and it may very well be the very first ship we dove on. I don't know. Maybe here. Do you see a ship? Am I crazy? There's the ship. Oh, it's on the side. Oh, that's kind of cool. So over here, that's our little cove. We're almost home. Just take a quick peek down here. There is a chest. Again, fairly deep, and particularly when you've had some success, you don't want to then just throw that away by getting sloppy. So we'll kind of start breaking this up a little bit. I don't want this to take forever. Also don't want to forget about it or lose it. The real challenge here. Ooh. Okay, we gotta go. Oh, we're gonna be hurting. Hurting puppies. Come on. Just so hard to get in and out of this dumb thing. Thorns pants. Oh man, and I didn't deal with my inventory. This is silly. Let's go home. Now that it's getting dark. Oh my goodness. Just wrecking ourselves here by being silly. We know we've got a, it's kind of right off this edge of the trees. So we'll just remember that's where we need to get back out to. Okay, let's just sleep on this island. Because the last thing we want to do is make a late return to home. All right, get our bed, go home, empty our pockets, go back and do a little ship diving. We got skellies. Skellies somewhere. I don't have my shield in my hand. Not a problem. Not scared. Man, we used up a lot of the potatoes, though, didn't we? That's good. That's why we have them. All right. So, good there. We're getting real close on our enchanting table, which would be a cool early thing to have. We've already got substantial diamonds and emeralds. Yeah, a bunch of random chest stuff. We got random wood, some more iron. Never ceases to amaze me how you go look at a chest and you're like, hey, what else do we have for that chest? Nothing. And then, oh, except for that, and that. We forgot all of those things. No, that was just me. Okay. Thorns pants, don't care, but this is a good place to store them until we have the grindstone to disenchant. We got some more wheat here. Man, we need to wrap up because we're getting real close to that 2 hour mark. Let's dump this. No, let's hold that because we'll go ahead and do our little harvesting experiment in the next episode. Let's do one of these. Do one of these. Boom. That'll remind us. Our map can go over in our treasure room. Our treasure chest. So these are 2 completed maps. We'll frame both of those once we get some cows going. Hang them up on the wall. These will go up. We'll take the wheat that we have out to the wheat boxes. We can leave a partial stack in case we want to make something from it. While we're here, just do a little bit of tidying up. That can go outside. These definitely can go outside. Those eventually will. And as I've said before, I kind of just like to have finished food stuff on one tier, out of the way so it doesn't get mixed in. Because this will fill in a little bit, and then just have some raw ingredients so we can, make the various foodstuffs as we go. But I think we did pretty well there. We get a huge expansion of our basement. We flipped 3 of our fields. We flipped our trees, and we have those ready to go again after a little adventure and a treasure chest, a little above water drowned city, and a shipwreck that we just discovered. So lots of good stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you'll make your way on back to check out future videos in the future. Ooh, scary. Yeah, only the ways that no, we're not starting. We're thanking. We're thanking you for watching. I really do mean that. I appreciate it. If you found this channel and enjoy, please spread the word and come on back. See us again if you'd like. Go ahead and click that thumbs up or drop me a comment. Let me know what it is you enjoy, where you're watching from, or some fun geological feature of your home, since we talked about tectonics and the Front Range and the mountains around my town. That's pretty cool stuff. So thanks again. We'll see you next time. Take care.